We are live. We are finally back. We were on for just a few minutes last week, but now I'm so excited because we're really going to start focusing on the divine feminine. And we've got Lisa of Future Echo Astrology joining us to
That-
talk all about Venus and Mars and how it affects the divine feminine and how we, as carriers of the divine feminine, which P.S., it is amongst all of us, um, can restore the balance, right? Because
Yes.
let's face it, we are. Hello, Coventina Waterhawk. Love to see her here. Um, how
Yay.
we are out of balance. Everything is out of balance right now. So that's where we really want to go. Is what can we focus on to bring balance back to the world? So, John, it's been a while. Nice
Yeah.
to see you,
Nice to
Lisa.
see
Nice
you
to
too.
see you. I'm
You
glad
too.
we're live and we have our favorite, most valued listener in the audience today. So that's wonderful too. Who has I noticed become a best-selling author
Yay.
since we last saw her, a couple of
Congrats.
times over, if I'm not mistaken.
Very nice.
So that's amazing. Anyway, okay. So uh, Venus and Mars is kind of what you wanted to lead off with. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how that affects the divine feminine and sort of how we all are moving through the world at this moment?
Okay. So thank you both for having me on the show. I'm always so happy to be here. So, in terms of the divine feminine, so the archetype in in terms of the astrological language would be the planet Venus. So, and just for those of you that know, a little bit about astrology, so you have a sun sign, but you also have your moon is in an astrological sign, you have a personality sign, you also have an astrological sign that Venus was in at the time of your birth.
Hmm.
So, in terms of if you listen to the astrological verbiage out there, just know that in terms of you're looking at divine feminine, that is going to be Venus energy, and know that you have an archetype for how that operates in your life. And that is viewed through the lens of the astrological sign that Venus was transiting in its orbit through that constellation at the time of your birth.
Hmm.
So that's how we can kind of take the divine feminine and kind of personalize it in our lives.
That's cool.
There you go.
And so with this astrology, I'll just go on a little bit more and then I'll open it up for questions. So, in terms of astrology and your birth chart, it's just a series of layers that are all woven together to form your unique, I call it kind of an energy blueprint, if you will. That makes it's like the closest thing you're ever going to get to your own owner's manual. So, and it's so easy now these days to, there are apps where you can pull up your chart. There's a lot of information out there on the symbols and stuff. So, and again, specifically related to divine feminine. So, first thing you're going to want to do, the planets are urges. Venus is our urge to love
Hmm.
and to nurture and support ourselves and others. It also is related to, it's like love and money, right? Or money being resources. It's very much an attracting energy. And so it is going to be in an astrological sign at the time of your birth. And that is like an adjective that describes how your Venus operates.
What are some possible ways that Venus could be operating?
Yeah, okay. So if we take, if Venus is in Aries, the first sign of the zodiac, Aries is very, and it can be impulsive, it can be courageous, it wants what it wants when it wants it. So it might be
Is that
very,
where my Venus is?
I'm sorry, I don't know, but we could look it up, and that very well could be the case. Whereas Venus in Taurus, Taurus is an earth sign. It's practical. It's grounded. It's going to want things to be structured and stable. It's going to want to be able to trust. It wants its, routines, it's going to be a little bit slower to open up. So if you kind of start pairing keywords for the planets and then the signs, and then if you know your birth time, you can calculate the area of life that Venus is going to be most prominent in. So the houses are like the classrooms, or where we are going to play out things in our lives.
So just like your sun sign is in a particular house, so is Venus.
So is Venus.
And that's going to affect love and money, you said?
Love and money are the keywords for Venus.
Keywords, okay. All right.
Mm-hmm. It's a lot. It goes into a lot more depth than that, but those are kind of the key. I always say, like, Venus is love and money, right? So that affects so much in our life.
Yep. How about the bigger picture, though? So, I mean, I think everyone can attest to the fact that energy right now is a little chaotic. It's a little bit not kind and nurturing, not Venus-like. So tell me about that, this bigger picture thing. What does astrology have to say about the bigger picture, nurturing?
And I'm going to bring in, let's see, it is the relationship arena has been up for grabs for quite a while. Because, and I think I talked about this on one of the other shows. So if we look at balancing, right, we want to balance within ourselves. We all have that Venus divine feminine in ourselves. We want to balance that with our divine masculine. That's going to be Mars. So they're not going to be polar opposites in your chart, but there is that polarity of the energy.
Okay.
And Venus and Mars have been ruling the eclipses, where a lot of fated events can manifest through since 2021, from mid-November 2021 through the end of March of this year. These eclipses, for the most part, have been going back and forth, ruled by Venus and Mars. And then Mars went retrograde, which means it just kind of went more internalized, and you're working through your issues more internally, or you're reviewing things. The retrogrades are we're redoing, relooking at, analyzing all of that. So that happened December 6th of 2024 through February 24th of 2025. And then right after that, Venus went retrograde March 2nd of 2025 through April 13th of 2025. So they went back inside, and now they're out in the open, and all of the internal work, or maybe situations that occurred during this time frame, is kind of up for grabs now in terms of what do we want to do in our outer relationships, but more importantly, I think always, what do we want to do in our relationship with ourselves, which to me is the most important thing.
Does the fact that we've gone retrograde and that Venus and Mars are kind of trading off, is that potentially a recipe for uncertainty?
I think it's a recipe for uncertainty, because it's going to, when they go retrograde, to me, it's going to percolate all this internal dialogue, if you will, about how we do relationships and what our needs are and what our desires are, what our wants are. And also, and I've just, in my client sessions and just other practitioners that I talk to, I'm really getting a sense of that this is a little bit of a make or break it with relationships. So if they are, and I think the love relationships are needing to be transformed to be vital. And if they can make it through the transformation, they could come out stronger. And so you might have to just go through some, if it's real strong to begin with, you'll tweak it. If there's pressure points, those will get activated at certain times. And so if it's meant to make it through this time, they typically do. But a lot of them are up for review in terms of, both partners might not be on the same page of what they want. And sometimes it's like, from my evolution and growth, I may need to leave the relationship because it just doesn't meet my needs anymore.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a bigger container I wanted to talk about today too, is that so Venus, so the planets from the sun and moon through, through Saturn, they're especially sun, moon, Mars, Venus, and Mercury are more personal planets, meaning they just operate more in our day-to-day life. So it'd be like the minor arcana in a tarot.
Oh, nice. Perfect.
Right?
Perfect analogy. Thank you.
Yeah. So just for the tarot people. So the outer planets, specifically Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, in 2025, they're all changing signs.
Changing signs, what does that mean?
Okay, so the outer planets move at a much slower pace.
Yep.
So like Pluto, it takes around 248 years to go all the way through. To get back to your chart. So you divide that up by 12. It takes a long time to go through a sign.
Oh, I see. Okay. So it's like you're going through a house.
Yeah, Uranus is an 84 degree, or I'm sorry, an 84-year cycle. So you divide that by 12. Neptune it goes back and forth with anyway, they're long orbits. So they spend a longer amount of time in an astrological sign.
Okay.
They won't make it through all the signs in the chart, whereas the moon goes through your whole chart once a month. Right. So they're changing signs. Uranus is going into Gemini, Neptune's going into Aries, and Pluto's going into Aquarius. So they're all changing signs, and they're really more either seeds to plant for our conscious growth, our consciousness growth, or if you're living consciously, you can use them more personally. So they're all changing signs. And I think what they're calling the personal planets to do is to go, okay, where do you really want to be right now? This is a time to really life review in a sense and go, are you living the life? Are you living authentically? Are you individuated? Are you happy? There's been so many cultural things going on. COVID, I think, allowed us to go inward, right? And it's like a lot of internal processing. And now we're being called to say, okay, where are we at with our relationships? And how do I balance the love for self with the actions that I take in the outer world? What that would be Mars. That's the balance, right? So I hope
it's kind of an element with self-care.
Yeah, I think, first of all, your Venus, you have to look at your love needs first, because if you don't take care of your love needs, you're not going to be good in any partnership with somebody else.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And a lot of that is up for grabs. And a lot of it is, feminine rising and saying, kind of taking back their power a little bit, not to overpower the masculine, like we talk about with Angie, right? But it needs to be more balanced, and we need to start with self-love always.
You also see that in a big picture scope as far as the Venus and divine feminine energy moving back into balance, potentially in bigger world events.
Yeah, I do. And I know my focus is always more on working with individuals versus mundane. So I'm not as versed on that, but we're going through a Pluto return in the United States. So everything's up for grabs in the United States.
Oh,
and there are, some feminine rights that have been taken away that we're trying to get back, trying to balance it.
That's the give and take, right? The push and pull, the tug of war.
Yeah, exactly.
Because while we are talking about the astrology, right, we're also talking about, the galactic, if you will, war, which is masculine versus feminine, which is not really how it's meant to be, but the masculine never wanted to be overtaken by the feminine, which is really funny when you think about it, because the big problem for most women is that we act based on what other people think we should do, right? We all do that. We do that a lot, right?
Yeah.
But in order to get through the whole quashing of the divine feminine, we had to learn that people-pleasing skill. And we had to start putting on those masks, right? That showed us as able to fit into the world. And this is what I really love about all of this, is that we've got all this nonsense going on in the United States right now that is attracting all of the attention. So if those of us who are really looking to help rise the divine feminine back up pay attention and act, it's like that game we used to play when we were kids. What was that? 1, 2, 3 stoplight or something? You know,
Oh
like,
yeah,
remember,
yeah.
remember, like what you had to run up on the person, and then when they turned around, you had to stop real quick. That's
Yep.
what it's like right now. So if we just coordinate our efforts as feminine, keeping in mind that we are not here to overtake, we are here to balance, then the beautiful thing is that we look at the energy, the information that you give us, and we can leverage that energy in a way that helps us really accomplish that goal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and it's interesting that you talk about this time now, because so many of us, you know, when you talk about who are you, what do you want to do, what do you want to do with your life, what do you want to do that doesn't look like what everybody thinks it should look like? What is it that you want it to look like? And that's right where I'm at right now. Because everybody thinks I should do this, or I should do this, or I should do this, or, you know, I've got to listen to this, got to do that. It's not what I want.
Mm-hmm.
I know what I want. I don't, you know, I know what I want. I like what I'm doing. Well, you know, it'll be better after August, or after we get to August, and I don't have to worry about this anymore. But the idea that we all have some sovereignty in our decisions and choices. And then if we can get this information from you and the astrologers, the astrology of it, so that we can leverage that energy in a way that really helps us restore that balance. Because if they have their way, right, we're going to go all the way back to the Handmaid's Tale. That's what they think. That's what they want. The oligarchs and the, you know, and that's as much politics as I'm willing to talk here. So I just want to say, because there's a comment here from Coventina, her sun, Venus, Mercury, Saturn, and Chiron are all in her first house. Her Mars is opposite her sun and Venus. Wait, I don't understand that.
So
maybe and Venus was a comment to something else. But anyway, so she's just telling us, you know, a little bit about herself.
Yeah. So Mars opposite the sun is, how do I balance what I desire to do with, you know, being true to myself with the relationship with others. And it's very, you know, all of that in the first house. When you have a concentration of planets in a house, that house to me means that that's the main arena that you're going to be focused on for the lifetime. And the first house is the most personal part of the chart. It's your physical body, and it's all things you. Opposite the 7th house. So that's the Mars house, opposite the 7th house, which is the Venus house, because it's Libra's house. It's ruled, you know, Venus rules Libra and Taurus. So their relationship arena is going to be really highlighted for her this lifetime. And it is going to be important for her. So understanding that, and understanding that it's not that you have to be against, but it's more about just being self-oriented. It's Mars and Aries natural house. So it's not about being selfish. It's really loving everyone in your life is best if you start with yourself.
That's really good advice for everyone, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like, to me, the 1st and 7th house show your sacred relationship with yourself. So, and I think I talked about this on another show, and my teacher said, you know, they wanted to get married, and, you know, and she's like, well, first of all, let's look at your relationship issues. And I'm like, of course, I don't have any, right? You know, everybody thinks, like, what issues do I have? And then she pointed them out based on looking at those 2 houses and everything, you know, followed the energy around the chart. And I went home thinking, I left thinking she was crazy. And I knew she was right at the end of the day. And then I worked on it. So the chart is such a great roadmap for how to work. It's a roadmap of working on yourself, you know, which never ends, but it just, and especially when you can connect the collective energies in and say, oh, really, I need to focus on this right now in my life. But yeah, if you don't take care of you, everything else is eventually going to get activated and up for grabs anyway, I think.
Yeah. I mean,
We all have to come back to ourselves. The older we get, the more we realize that. Right?
True.
Well, I mean, it is kind of sad, right, that we get that wisdom when we get older.
True.
Like that, I think if you really think about it, there's an awful lot of design flaws in the human condition.
Right.
Yeah,
Who designed this?
Right? Like to have the energy of a child with the wisdom of a senior would be amazing.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
Right.
Or to have the curiosity of a child when you actually have the desire to learn,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, who wants to learn anything about history in high school? But now it's fascinating, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes, it is. Because you've got the wisdom behind you of seeing how it is either repeating or how it's affecting what we're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing.
Yeah. That's being able to see it, from the eyes of wisdom.
So John and I, we have a little bit of time, right? Oh yeah, we do.
Yep.
Time. John and I came up with a few questions that we just wanted to kind of run past you because we knew we were going into Venus. So, how can Venus show us where we've been taught to block our own pleasure or worth? Can Venus show us where we are falling short, let's say, in self-care and self-pleasure? Well, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
That takes on a very new meaning when you start doing this priestess work I'm doing, when you say the word self-pleasure. But or self-worth, right? Like, can Venus help us figure that out?
Yes. Okay. So at this moment, Venus rules 2 astrological signs. The first sign is Taurus. And so Taurus is an earth sign, and Taurus is the energy that has to do more with the money and the resource side of Venus. And it has to also do with safety, trust, and security.
Oh, interesting that the two are together, right? I mean,
right.
Because
in astrology, everything in your life is ruled by something, a sign or a planet. So we're looking at that side of Venus in terms of the Taurus component. So you have Taurus. Everybody has these Taurus energies somewhere in their chart. They may not have a planet in there, but they have it somewhere in their chart. So wherever you have Taurus and this is why it's so important to know the time you were born and look on the birth certificate to get the time, because that determines the life areas. But in that area, you're going to be dealing with issues related to feeling safe. Can I trust? Can I feel secure? You need some extra shoring up there, if you will. And then, of course, all the dynamics that go on in a family and your childhood and all of that. So, and I always say, like, if there's a mom that has a Taurus baby, a strong Taurus baby, I always say you cannot hold that baby enough, because the more you can get it to feel safe and secure as a child, they're going to be able to trust life earlier. So wherever we have our Taurus energy, we're learning to trust. So, and it doesn't necessarily come naturally to us. So we all have something in our family systems, right? So you just need some extra, you need a little bit to feel more safe and secure. And that could be, they always say, like, Taurus knows where the pennies are, right? And it's not per se that they're materialistic, but the money makes them feel secure. And then they can step more into divine trust, if you will, because that's what you're really trying to get to, is divine trust, that no matter what happens, because you can't control it, right? Whatever happens, you can trust yourself.
So how does a person see, and I might have missed this.
Okay.
But how does a person see that in their chart? Like,
yeah.
And then what is the do part of it?
Okay. The do part, did you say? Okay.
Yeah. So when you see it in your chart, what's your do?
Yeah. I mean, so if Taurus can be in a place in a chart where people need, to shore up their safety and security, can it be in a place in their chart where they are strong in those things? Does that make sense? Like,
yeah, I mean, I think with Taurus, so the thing about Taurus, it's a very grounded, practical energy, and some people, I always think of these energies operate on a spectrum, right? So if on the positive side, you're going to be somebody who's very grounded, practical, self-assured. I can.
So as a Taurus sun sign, are you saying?
Well, wherever. So it could be sun, it could be moon, it could be a sun, it could be, it can play out in a number of different ways. So to backtrack, what you do is look at the outer wheel and you look for the symbol of Taurus.
Okay.
And everything moves counterclockwise for 30 degrees. Each of the signs are 30 degrees.
Okay.
So if you find Taurus energy, you may have it in a couple of different houses.
So,
or you might have
wait a minute. So are you saying some people don't have Taurus in their chart?
Some people don't have a planet
Or
or an angle in Taurus.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Some people, it all really, so this is just a side note with astrology. What you do is the wheel is 360 degrees. It's comprised of 12 signs that are 30 degrees each, and they move counterclockwise. It's the most important concept to me to get in astrology. So that when you know that, you can look at your chart and figure it out. So, or you can call me, I'll tell you.
Right.
So anyway, so the knowing part is to find where Taurus is. Do I have planets in there? Is it strong? If it's on an angle, it's strong for 7th or 4th or 10th house. The doing part is to kind of then take that energy and relate it to your life experiences and say, because the shadow side of this Taurus energy would be people pleasing. So you feel safe. You might be codependent in a relationship. You might have a fear of rejection. You might feel like I can't trust, so I can't be vulnerable. There's a number of shadow parts. So just look at that area of your life and go, okay, how safe and secure do I feel? How much can I just trust that things are happening for me and not to me in that area of my life?
Yep.
So that could be the doing part of it.
So can you just already be trusting of those things? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are you saying that are you saying that if Taurus is present, you're going to be insecure?
I think
you see what I'm saying? Like, is it a
I think it's just a little bit more up for grabs. To me, a lot of this gets established in your childhood. So did you feel safe and secure? Were there financial difficulties in your family of origin? Did you receive, love from your parents? All of those things. If those are lacking a little bit, that's going to affect your self-worth and self-esteem. And then you're just going to need to do some, you can do some work in various different ways to kind of shore that up. So really, to me, it's like, do I have divine trust? Am I able to just surrender into this? And the divine trust to me is knowing that you can handle whatever happens to you, because things are going to happen.
How many people actually have that?
To me, it's a lifelong, you work on it, right? You just work on it. But when at least when you know where it is in your chart, and, it helps you, to navigate it a little bit. If you've got a sun or moon in Taurus, your pattern, your everyday daily habits are really important, and they need to be kind of the same in order to feel safe and sound, right? So it's just kind of, that's where, reading your chart, you kind of have to read it as a whole. It's hard to pick apart places, but that's where you would look for that part in terms of the money and the resources, and the safety and trust would be where your Taurus is, and that is ruled by Venus. So that connects it back to the divine feminine.
Okay, so I'm going to say this to John, and I'm going to let him have the question. This is all a little feng shui for me.
Yes.
So
that's why we have Lisa here, because
I know it can sound confusing. Like it's hard to take one piece of your chart and in isolation, because interacting with everything. But if, people that are Taurus, they're going to really relate to that part. Because sometimes it's not money that makes
people that are in the sun sign Taurus, or weren't we asking about Venus though?
We are, but Venus rules Taurus. That's why I'm connecting it back.
Oh, I see.
So I'm extrapolating Venus out into Taurus, and then I was going to go to Libra next.
Let's do that.
Okay, go to Libra.
I think so.
Okay,
we have time. We do, right?
Okay, so
I have no idea what you're talking about anyway. So you do you.
Okay, so Libra is the love part.
Okay, so the Taurus.
I should say, sorry, shouldn't say. I should say the relation. I look at it more as the relationship, because Libra is where is literally trying to balance and harmonize two things.
And a minute ago, when we were talking about Taurus, that was more grounding, and that was more.
That's more about maybe the self-love.
Self-love. Okay. Oh,
yeah. Let's talk about it in those terms. I think would be good.
Okay.
So
back to Libra.
Yeah. So back to Libra. Okay. So Libra is the relationship sign in a sense. In the natural wheel, it rules the 7th house of relationships. And it's the scales of justice. It likes harmony and balance and fairness. In theory, because it's the opposite sign of Aries, in theory, it has a focus on the other. It definitely likes to do activities with another. It likes to be in a relationship. It likes to have something to bounce it off of. Whereas in Aries is like, I want to be independent. Libra is like, oh, but I want to be doing something with someone. Okay.
Yes. I mean, I can see my Libra friends. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. And so to me, we need to look at how do I balance my needs against somebody else in a relationship when we get to Libra? Because you're going to have a tendency naturally to kind of focus on the other, but they call Libra the other Aries. It's like it wants what it wants, but it wants the other to want it too, and then it feels good.
That's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, it can be. So again, the more you know yourself, the more you can go, okay, how do I balance me with them? So a good example is just getting him to make a decision. I have a strong Libra girlfriend, and on her birthday, we always force her to pick the restaurant. Because she will say, wait, I don't know, what do you guys want? And it's like, no. Just step into your Aries, because you want to balance it out. Step into your Aries. I want this. Is that okay with you guys? Yep. So it can be a strategist. It likes to get what it wants, but it has a tendency to focus on the other. So the shadow side of that is people pleasing, so that they feel okay and you don't feel bad because they don't feel okay. Like sometimes we people please to make ourselves feel better because we don't want to feel the hurt of them not being okay with what we want to do.
Right. In business, that's particularly problematic. Because, well, I mean, case in point, you agree to do X, the customer says, well, can you also do Y? And instead of saying, no, that's out of scope, you say, of course we'll do that. And then you give away your time, and because you want. It's worse to have them not like you than it is to say, no, that's not what you paid for.
Yeah. I agree. Oops. Okay. So I would say that, with that, the Venus, the divine, bringing it back to the divine feminine.
Yep.
So Venus does rule the Libra. So this is where then we have to balance how much we love and support others, and is it loving and supporting them if we don't honor ourselves? That's a big question to ask yourself.
We're almost balancing those two things too, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Self-love with loving others.
Mm-hmm.
And not be too high either way.
Exactly. Right. And that's a tricky balance, really. Right. It really is. It's one thing to get really clear on what you need and desire, but then, okay, we're in these relationships, and it's not just love. We have relationships with our friends, our boss, our animals. We have to balance that all against what we desire to do.
This is about boundaries, isn't it?
Well, boundaries are really important. Yeah, knowing your boundaries are really important, because I think if your boundaries are violated too often, then it's going to just probably trigger that divine masculine to just blow, And it's like, I can't take it anymore. And it's like, okay, but were you being honest along the way?
Right. You've actually
Now
given
that's really interesting,
Yeah.
because when I see that blow, and I don't do it much anymore, but I did used to a lot. Like, I could eat people for lunch. There's no doubt about that.
Mhm.
Did I like it? No. Did I feel good afterwards? No. But it always has something to do with when I perceive that uh, somebody was doing something that might hurt somebody I cared about.
Yeah.
Right?
That's
It was
really
never it was never really about me. It was always about, my kid or my husband or whatever. But it's really interesting that you bring up the idea of that being the divine masculine within, because we all know that we all carry both.
Mm-hmm.
And I most of my men friends carry a very close balance. Like, I don't have a lot of real
alpha male.
like, I mean, even my husband is not so alpha. I couldn't possibly, like, I just couldn't possibly. There's no this it like, it would be constant. So it's really interesting. What I'm hearing then is, if we focus on the divine feminine and the divine masculine within ourselves, then we can start to emanate that balance.
Yeah.
And if we emanate that balance, right, and we project that balance out there, then we're going to have, through the process of entrainment, help others to arrive at that balanced position as well.
Exactly, because to me, it's like, when you're more balanced, your vibration is going to be more balanced, and when in all your interactions, and you can help calm people down, in a sense, like if your nervous system is really solid and calm, you can help in those relationships. So it's always a little bit of a sweet spot, and in that way, with the divine feminine and masculine, because that's a relationship arena, that sweet spot is the balance of, I didn't let my needs go too long,
right,
before becoming self-assertive,
right,
before you get a self before
well,
you
and it's it's really interesting that you say that, because, and I don't know anything about her astrology really, but I have a very dear friend who is frustrated a lot because she does a lot of things for a lot of people, and she doesn't get what she thinks should come to her. And this is what I say: well, did you ask?
right.
Did you ask for it? Did you tell them that's what you wanted? No, they should just know. No, they shouldn't just know. You know what I mean?
My relationship issues. Yes, I know. You just assume they know. They don't know sometimes.
They don't know. They don't know. And when you look at, like, the situation in particular, none of it is malicious.
It's just an omission.
It's a little bit thoughtless, maybe.
I think
none of it is
right. It's more unconscious.
But when you can't get up this. I heard somebody say this, and I want to try to get it. Like, you can't get upset about the actions of a dynamic you chose to participate in.
Like that.
Right? Like, you chose to participate in this dynamic. If you don't like the way it's coming out, because you didn't say anything. And so I think there's a lot here, but I think that anytime you learn balance and you come from a place of balance, it's so much better. I mean, have you ever walked in somewhere loaded for bear? You always find one, right?
Yep.
You always find one. I used to walk, well, because things used to happen all the time. Yeah, I mean, things like the electric company cashed a $250 check for $2,500. Back in the day when things weren't electronic. Stuff like that would happen a lot, and I'd be like, what in the, so you just assume, you walk around assuming these things are going to happen. So you go in right away, you're loaded for bear. Well, guess what? You walk in loaded for bear, you're going to find one.
Yeah.
But if you walk in expecting to, to have gratitude and show kindness, it always turns around. It always comes back to you. It always does. I've never had one single person, even in the McDonald's drive-through, that I looked at them and smiled and said, "Have a wonderful day," that didn't turn around and sincerely say, "You too."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's balance. That's emanating balance. And that balance,
Love.
Yep.
right. And that love and balance and kindness and gratitude makes its way to the next person
Right.
and the next and the next and the next. And so that's really what this is all about, right? Is enabling
That's the
this.
spreading of the divine feminine energy.
And it is the divine feminine, right?
Yep.
Because the nurturers, right?
Yeah,
the nurturers, the lovers, the caregivers,
well, and at the highest expression, it's unconditional love.
right, that's exactly right. At the highest expression, it's unconditional love.
Yep.
And it's just, not to say that the masculine is not capable of unconditional love, but they've got to work at it a little harder, right?
Right.
They just do. They just, especially those that are heavier in the masculine, right?
At least I got a question for you, going like kind of like takeaway value. How can we amplify that element of divine feminine and love from an astrological perspective?
Yeah. So again, to me, it goes back to understanding your chart and maybe starting in areas where, well, okay, let's go, because the moon is involved here a lot too. That's a lot about nurturing and supporting. And, we have our emotional triggers.
Okay.
Right. Yep. So if you can, the more you can, when you get triggered, first of all, I think having a strategy to become more conscious in the moment, as conscious as you can in the moment, whether it's a breath, and then just say, what can, even if it's just, honestly, I think this is good. This is coming to me. It's just like, put your hands on your heart and just, breathe in and just send love.
Right.
Out. You send it to that person. If you can, send it just out. I'd walk in nature every day like that. I just release a lot, so the more you can keep your vibration high, and then those emotional triggers, they might take a little bit longer to activate. So I think working on we're all, and when I think of triggers, I think that it's where you react instead of responding.
Okay. All right. Good.
That makes much sense.
Yep.
I mean, and what seems to be happening at the moment is there's a lot of piling on right now happening, and then so it's like, and it's not just me, it's happening to me, but it's not just me, it's other people that I know as well, where it's like this happens and then this and then this and then this, and then not only that, but you have the collective energy surrounding you, that if you're at all energetically sensitive, you are feeling that, and you're subject to feel that sort of angst and, what's happening. And then there are those that, just go on a mission to make themselves heard in a way that's, rather inappropriate, let's say, instead of taking some time to step back. And you can channel the energy of love easy, like it doesn't take much of anything, right? You invite it to go in one hand through your heart and around, and then make its way back. So
having a meditative practice helps. It helps to reset.
What is the predominant energy that we're balancing the Venus energy against? I'm sorry if I used the wrong word, but is that Mars on the other side, basically?
It would be, yeah. I mean, I think it would be, because they're the two personal planets that represent the feminine and the masculine.
Okay, all right.
And so, that to me would be, the more balanced you are that in that arena, you're just in, because it's not just love relationships, right? I think we have a relationship with everything in our life. So the more balanced you are, you're just going to be in better relationship to everything in your life.
Nice.
Well, and that, I mean, that, and you can be that without understanding astrology. It's good if you do, but you can. And you can have an energetically cohesive home without understanding feng shui. These things are available to you in many different ways, right?
Yes.
So, but the bottom line is this, that no matter how you look at it, or how you get there, whether it's astrology or feng shui or Reiki or whatever, what we're talking here is balanced energy. Balanced energy creates balanced reactions, and balanced and non-reactive energy is resilient. I mean, that's just the bottom line. So however you get there. Coventina's taken off. See you later. Anyway, yeah. So that, I mean, that is what it is. Wow, I can't believe it's already time.
Good conversation.
Yeah.
Great ideas.
Okay, so Lisa, you're going to come back next week, you said.
Yes. Yep.
And what do we got for next week?
Well, one thing I thought, if people want to add in the comments their questions related to the divine feminine.
Oh, yeah, maybe.
Or no?
I mean, they can, absolutely, and we will check, but don't hold your breath, is what I'm going to say.
Okay.
We'll have a backup set of questions.
A backup.
Yeah, John and I will have a backup set of questions.
Or let's talk about creation. You need Venus to create anything.
There you go.
Let's talk about creation energy. Let's go there next if you want.
That sounds like a great plan.
That's creativity. Yes.
Everybody is, and the thing of it is that creativity, because they're adjacent, creativity and security, they're right there together, right? When you look at the root chakra and the sacral chakra, creativity and safety and security, they're right there together. Like they are adjacent. So that's a really good plan. All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. And if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button. And
before it hits you.
Oh, John, you're at it again. Anyway, if you haven't yet, hit the subscribe button. Lisa, thank you ever so much for joining us.
Thank you guys.
And we just really enjoyed talking, even though sometimes I have no idea what you're talking about. I really try.
Can I say one more thing? It's a new moon. Set your new moon intentions.
Oh, yeah.
Tonight.
The new moon.
Set the new moon intentions.
Yep.
It's in Cancer. Work on, again, what we were talking about, or your emotions, or relationships. So figure out what you desire to create.
Perfect. You need to come on every month and tell us that.
Oh, I'd love to.
All right. That sounds good. Okay. So thank you again, everybody. We will see you next week. We're back at our regular schedule. This is episode 1 of our first seasonal go. So there will be 8 episodes in this season. And then we'll let you know when we get closer to the end what the next season is going to look like. So thank you very much. And we will talk soon.
Bye.